Hey, what's up, YouTube? I haven't made a video in a while, and a customer wanted me to work on his 9100 Marshall Power Amp. 9100 means that it's a 50 watt with 5881s, and if it was a 9200, it would be a 100 watt with eight 5881s. So what he wants to do is he wants to convert it to EL34s. For an amp that uses EL34s. So he basically wants a 50/50 amp that Marshall also makes for EL34s. So the only difference between a 50/50 and a 1991, which is also in a 50/50 but with 5881s, like I mentioned, is the screen grid, the screen resistors that are here. These are 470, and there's 8 of them. I'm sorry, there's 4 of them. And everything else is the same. The bias resistor, it has a bias trim pot, it has a balancing trim pot for the phase inverter. And so what I want to do first is I'm going to replace the screen resistors that are here underneath this part of the amp right here. These right here, and this 5 watt 100 ohm resistor here. These are your chokes apparently. So if I replace this will be like putting on a choke, but these resistors are going to stay. So I'm replacing the 470 ohms. So I hope I didn't say 470K. So they're 470 ohms. There's 4 of them. So one for each tube. So I'm going to do that. But since the amp is, I've taken the amp apart, and these capacitors here, this amp is from 2000. I should just might as well replace the capacitors. So I have the capacitors. I have the correct screen resistors here. And in order to get to this section of the amp, I had to unsolder these wires that go here that jump from the main board, and unsolder some of these wires and this wire to lift this part up. So after I'm done with this, I'm gonna put everything back because I don't have to come in here anymore. And then I'm gonna measure from this point to that point and see how much clearance I have, because EL34s are approximately 20 millimeters taller than the 5881s that are in here. So I have to measure to see if I could have enough clearance to unsolder the socket, remove it, and lay it on top, and then put a nut as a spacer to raise it up even higher. So, but if I'm not gonna have enough clearance, I'm just gonna put the EL34s on there, because what I'm worried about is maybe the the socket hitting this plastic right here, or rubbing it, and then rubbing the metal, which will cause a short and possibly destroy the amp. So I'm going to see if I could zoom in and show you guys what I'm talking about as far as the screen resistors. And there's going to be some camera movement, so I apologize. So I'm going to try to zoom in right here, and I see that helps. So I'm going to remove these capacitors that are right here. These capacitors right here. Okay, so I'm going to remove 4 and 4, and these 4 screen resistors. Okay, so I want to do that off camera because I mean I don't have the correct setup to like maybe put it overhead or anything like that. But just a little bit of orientation on the amp. This clip right here, this wire, goes here, and that's for your fan. So the fan turns on when the amp turns on, and it gets its power from here, from this section here. So right here you have your power transformers and your output transformers. Yeah, so Actually, these are your power transformers, and these are your output transformers. So again, there's no choke. Here's your four power tube sockets, and the tubes sit on the top. These caps here are for, I guess Marshall uses the same metal galvanized plate here for either 50-50 or 100-100. So there's no sockets here, so it's a 50-50 amp. Here's your on standby, and then right underneath here you have your preamp tubes. So you have your 12AX, no sorry, the 12AT7 ECC81, the 12AX7 ECC83, ECC83, and a 12AT7 ECC81. So I'm going to replace those two, and then in order to get to this board, I have to squeeze this clip, that one, and there's one more here. Then I have to remove the knobs that are here to lift the board up and scoot it out, and I have to cut some of these clips here. So after I'm done, I have to like make everything neat again and dress it up so it could look like it's never been tampered with, and also I could it helps in case there's something wrong. If something doesn't sound right or anything like that, I could troubleshoot a little easier knowing that everything's organized. So I always double check everything when I'm done. So as of right now, I'm gonna off camera, I'm gonna unsolder this stuff, the capacitors, the filter capacitors, and the screen resistors. Then I'm gonna mount everything back. So I kind of went over which wires got unsoldered, so you guys saw that already. So other than that, this amp's supposed to have a bias pot for this side and a bias pot for this side, and there's supposed to be a trim pot to balance the 12AT7. So I'm not seeing it anywhere here, so I'm thinking that it's on this board, but that's kind of weird because how do you bias your amp if you have to remove this? So I'm going to double check the top one more time because I don't see any bias pots here. So if there's no bias pot, I'm going to have to get the voltage reading on pin 3 and then do a calculation on the power tubes and then to figure out what 70% is. And it probably has a fixed resistor. So then I would have to adjust the resistor to whatever value I need to correctly bias it. So per the schematic, on a 9100 power amp, the bias resistor is 27K and the trim pot to bias is 22K. On a 50-50 EL34 amp has the same setup. So we'll see. So we'll see when we get there. I'll turn the camera back on when I get to that. When I get to here, and then talk about what I'm seeing here, and then what I have to do. So I'll get back with you guys, and I'm gonna go ahead and go off camera so I could start the work. And again, I don't wanna do it on camera because it'll be a very long video, and I've noticed that there's not that many videos on these amps. There's only one on a 100 power amp, but he's talking about biasing, and he goes over the numbers, but he doesn't really bias the amp. He never goes over that. So I'm gonna just go over this amp because because there's not that many videos out there. That's why I felt like recording today. So that way it could help somebody else. So I'll get back and then go over what I did and if there was any problems, and that way somebody out there in YouTube land could fix his amp. Alright, thanks guys. I'll get back with you guys. Alright guys, I'm back about 45 minutes later. I removed all the filter capacitors here. These are a 220 UF at 400 volts. It doesn't have a percentage rating as far as plus or minus, but they're Nikons, and I'm not sure what the life is, but I installed 8 of them. Hope they're coming out on the screen there. 8 of them, and they looked like they were maybe possibly good still, but again they're like 30 years old, so I replaced them with some Nikons with the life of 12,000 hours, which would last them over 10 years. What I like about these is that it has that section on the top where if they start going bad, you'll be able to see if they're going bad by blistering on the top. And then these protrude out the chassis here, so whenever you remove the top cover, you'll be able to inspect your capacitors, right? That's cool. So then I removed all 4 of the 47. I'm not sure if you could see that. 47 ohms screen resistors. So there's 4. And then I installed 4 1K resistors of the same style. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this back in, wire it back up, then go over to this side and see if I can find a trim pot. I thought maybe I would find them here, but I don't see them anywhere. There's a fuse here, and I don't see the trim pot anywhere here or here. So I'll put this back and then bring out the schematic one more time. It does show it near this area here for the 12AT7. So it should be here somewhere on this side for the bias of the tubes here going to the main or the power board. Alright, so again I'm going to go off camera because nobody wants to see that. And when I remove this, I'll go back on and we'll go over some parts and see what I could identify. And then one good thing is that I'm recording is that there's 2 wires here that I'm gonna have to remove, and I'm gonna snap a picture first just in case. I don't want to forget, and that's why I want to take a picture and videotape it, if you will. So other than that, there's not too many components here other than the rectifier for each side and the resistor for the choke and the screen resistors for each tube and the main section and the screen section. So I'm surprised the screen resistors are not here. I'm sorry, the dropping resistors are not here. So they're probably on this board here. So again, sorry guys, I'm going to go off camera. But before I do that, I do want to replace this wire because it kind of separated a little bit and I don't like that, and I have the correct rating. So I'm going to dress that up here. I'm going to dress up the board where it goes right here. I'm going to remove as much solder as I could, so when I wrap it, it grabs on nice. So everything's going the right direction. The board has a marking indicating which way is ground, and plus I made a mental note that because I'm facing the amp, all the ground on the capacitors are facing me. So the ground is all of them are facing me. So I'm gonna go ahead and install that back on there, and when I remove this, I'll go back on and kind of show you what I did here, and then I'll get a closer up and show you. I'll show you this these sockets, and it's funny because the swamp resistors are actually on here on pin 5, but then they're mounted on here, right, as a stationary thing as opposed to flying up like you would on a regular Marshall. They're using pin 4. I think it's pin 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, pin 4 as like a stationary turret, if you will, to stabilize the 1/4 watt 5.6K resistor, and this is on all of them. So I'll just double check on that, make sure it's not touching anything before I turn it on, or before I seal everything up. So I'll get back with you guys. I'll talk to you. Hey guys, so I'm back again, and I installed the tubes. I biased the tubes, and I installed the preamp tubes, and I tested my tubes with the Maxi Pre that I have, and they all test really high. The 12AX7s test above 100 in gain, and the transconductance is 21. The 12AT7s are over 50 on the MU, which is gain, and the transconductance is approximately like 22, so 2,200. So I try to get as high as that I could, and then on the back here, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see that, but I am gonna move the camera, and we're gonna see if I could get a better angle. Okay. So I'm moving the camera now. So I'm gonna zoom in on a section here on the top. We're gonna start off on the top so we could kind of get an idea what's going on. I hope that light helps and it doesn't get in the way. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so to bias the amp, I had removed this and I didn't want to show that because it wasn't really crucial, or there was no learning point, if you will. But what I did learn is that the trim pots are back here, these little holes right there. And I'll zoom into the bottom ones. So what I learned is that the top one biases these tubes, and the bottom one biases the 12AT7. So what I biased was I matched the current to pin 1 and 6 because that was the only thing that would move when I would turn this trim pot. So I try to match the voltage as much as I could. Okay, because like right here, pin 3 and 8 are shared. So there's no way you could balance that because they're shared. So it was pin 6 and 1, and I matched the voltage, if you will, on both sides. And I believe that's what they mean by using this trim pot to match the 12AT7. So on the bottom, let's go to the bottom. It's getting a little blurry there, isn't it? So I'm going to zoom out so I could get a better. If I zoom in slow, that's good enough right there. So here, the bottom one bias the power tubes here, and the top one does the 12AT7. Okay, so that's basically it. There's no way there's no way that you need to get in here to remove it. It's like there's no reason, because the trim pots are here. Because I couldn't see them and I wasn't thinking about the hose, I removed it. So another thing I learned was these pots here. I'm sorry, these knobs. I'm gonna zoom out so I could have a better view of what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna adjust the camera one more time, so I apologize. Okay, so let me dim this a little bit because it's a little too bright. Okay, so this these knobs that come with the amp, I was trying to figure out how to remove them because I didn't want to break anything. So all you do is you pull them out. There's no set screw, right? And I was afraid to break anything because I wasn't sure if the shank that goes in here was plastic. So I used a tool that I use to remove knobs, if you will. And what I learned is that the potentiometers that are in here, all 4 of them, are metal, and the housing is metal, and they look pretty sturdy. So so I was able to remove this without a problem. And then one other thing is this little orange stripe here. It's basically glued on. There's no recessed section where this sits in. So I was thinking about cleaning it, but I'm going to leave it alone. So Both sides. I have tubes. I have a bunch of them. So what I did is I biased this section at 41 milliamps, and both sections got biased at 41 milliamps, and my plate voltage was approximately 417, 418, 20. It was just somewhere around there. So they're both halves are biased to the same thing. So I'm gonna call this the left side is biased identical to the right side, and my 12 AT7 over here got a higher reading than over here, and I'm not sure why, but over here I was getting like 90 on pin 1 and 6, and on this one I was getting 217, and I don't know, something might be wrong over here. So now I got to do an audio test. So as of right now, I'm just going to go ahead and move the camera real quick, set this down, and I'm going to put I have a JMP2 for them from the same owner. This amp used to belong to some musician, a well-known musician. I can't remember the name of the musician he said, but he apparently sold this amp, the 9100 power amp, and the JMP1 to the guy that I work on his amps. So I'm not sure if you could see, but the knobs are right here. For the potentiometers are right here. And one other thing is that because these tubes sit higher than 5881s, as you can see, they sit a lot higher. So I don't think the case is going to mount on back here. So the owner wants to drill holes on the top, and I told him that that's not a good idea. So I recommended that I remove the rivets from the power tube sockets, and then remove the socket and insert it from the bottom and put a spacer, like a nut, if you will, and then it'll push it down that way to see if they will sit lower, so this won't hit here. You know what I mean? So I mean, he could do whatever he wants, but he could use one of these little plastic things as a template as well. But you know, this one here, these four are JJs, and my preamp tubes are JJs. This JJ is a little odd because it's actually smaller, and if they were all the same size, I think that it would actually come down. So that's too bad that I couldn't find all four that are this size of JJs. This actually looks like a Tesla tube. So there's a gap right here. But anyways, earlier on the video I had said that in the front was your output tube and the power tube was in the back, but that's backwards. The front one is a power, I said power tubes, I'm sorry. The power transformers in the front and the output transformers in the back. So I'm going to put it back together, and then I am going to put the JMP, hook them up together and see what kind of sound I get. So anyways, that's pretty much what I have. I'm glad I was able to document this because I haven't seen any videos out there that a technician is working on these apps. So just to recap, I changed the filter caps, which are these right here. Right, there was 8 of them, so I changed all 8 of them. I replaced 4 screen resistors, which are 1K 5-watt resistors, and they're the kind that that have a fixed lead. They're not the wire type lead. It's a fixed lead, so that's what I use to put in here. So and then I biased the amp, and then biased the I balanced. I mean, that's the correct terminology. The 12AT7. So other than that, here's a resistor. I was trying to look for them. So this is has a fixed lead here. So you see that the amount this way. So I have hundreds of the ones that have leads coming out of here, but I don't want to use those. I wanted to use the correct ones, so I ordered them, and I have a whole bunch of them now. So cool. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for hanging in there. All right.